Hello again, this is a continuation of the HTML assignment in the University of Guelph-Humber course AHSS3080. What we're going to do in this video today is finish off the footer. So to do that, we're going to make sure we have the proper background color, modify this copyright information a little bit, and add social media links to the right hand side of the footer. Quick recap, we've already done the header, including the navigation and the logo back to the home page. We've built out all of the four different distinct areas, and we've done a little bit of work to the footer. If we go back to the desktop where I have all of my files inside this folder, we have the About HTML file as well as the website style CSS file. In addition to that, I've also put three different files in here. They're the three social media icons that I'm going to use. In this case, I'm using 32 by 32 pixel square social media icons. They're PNG files, and those are the images that we're going to use to link to our social media accounts. So to get started, back in the HTML here, this should look pretty familiar. We also have the CSS file open as well. The first thing that I'm going to do is add in the social media links. So if we look at the HTML document, what I'm trying to do is add the social media links on the right hand side, three in a row right here. To do that, I'm actually going to start off by adding the first image inside the footer. So back in the HTML document, inside the footer, I'm just going to start out by adding an image, and to do that we're going to use image source equals and then link to the proper image. And that is on the desktop in my case. And I'm going to link to the Facebook image first. So remember, it's in the same folder, makes everything really easy and quick. In my case, this is the way the file was saved, this exact name with uppercase and lowercase. And if I just did this to close it off and leave myself a comment, social or Facebook image, and I save that, when I preview it in the browser, if everything's done properly, it should show up, and there it is. So it did show up, but it's not in the right section yet. We want it over to the right hand side. To do that, I could push everything over, but what I realize now is that I'm going to have to put a div around this to be able to put it where I want it. So I'm going to create a new div. I'm going to call that div social media individual. The reason I'm calling this social media individual is because in addition to each one of three social media icons, we also want to create an overall div that's going to hold all three of them. Start of individual social media icon. Then I'm going to close off the div and just tab everything over to make sure everything is alright. So if I preview this, I won't actually see any changes. That's exactly what we're expecting. But what I want to do next is two things. I want to first add this social media individual class or style inside the style sheet, and I'm going to put that down here. I'm going to copy and paste just to make sure I have the exact same spelling. Our individual styles are getting a little bit longer now, and remember that if you use upper and lower case, it has to be spelled the exact same way to reference properly. And I know the width is 32 pixels in my case because I'm using 32 by 32 pixel image. And that should be it for now. Again, if I preview this, none of the changes will show up because we're just defining sort of what's already there. Next, if I add the other two social media links, I'm just going to copy and paste, but rather than Facebook, they are called Twitter and YouTube. Just make sure I have the proper spelling, and that's not the proper spelling, it's lowercase t in my case. So now when I preview this, and also notice that they're sharing one class. You can use a class multiple times, and this is the perfect example as to why you do that. Every single image that we're using is going to be displayed the same way, so we don't need to create 3 separate classes for that. Okay, so we have some progress. We have the three different icons there. We want to push them over to the right hand side, and we also want to make them on the same line. So to do that, we can just say float left, and that should take care of that to get them on the same line. Now, the reason we didn't float right is because we want all 3 of them as a unit to float right, but individually we want them to be pushed up against the left-hand side of that larger container that we're creating. So to do that, let's create that new div. We're going to wrap it around all 3 of these, and we'll call this div social media group rather than social media individual. And then close off the div down here. Preview the changes. Nothing should happen yet, but just make sure we haven't broken anything. And then in the CSS, now we have to create the styles around this social media group. Oops. So the first thing that we want to do, if we look back at the HTML document, we want to push all of these 3 over to the right hand side, but also before that there's a little bit of we want to add a little bit of space in between these. 3 of them are kind of jammed together, so if we can do that right in the individual class just by giving it some a small margin, we'll say a margin of 5 pixels, and what this will do is it'll actually show up as a 10 pixel gap in between each one of them. If you look at each one of these individually, what we're saying by adding a 5 pixel margin is we're putting 5 pixels of space around each and every individual one of these 3 pieces. So that means 5 pixels on this side of the Facebook logo, 5 pixels on the right of the Facebook icon, 5 pixels on the left of the Twitter, so in between those 2 will be 10 pixels. Make sure I have this saved and refresh that. Now it's spaced out a little bit nicer, and we're good to go that way. Social media group, what I want to do is float this to the right hand side of that div, and if we go and preview it now, that looks pretty good to me. Next up, we can actually get rid of this word footer. That was just a placeholder, so I'm going to get rid of that and refresh it. Everything's looking pretty good here. The next thing I sort of want to do is move away from this a little bit and start to tackle this. This is our sort of copyright information, or our name in this case. it's way too high in the screen, or in this div, and the font doesn't match the font that we used earlier. To do that, I'm going to go into the style, and we called that copyright. I'm going to change the font family to Verdana, and I'm also going to give it a margin top of, let's say, 35 pixels to start, and see what that looks like. That is not what I wanted to do. In this case, let's try padding top. And that's pushed it down a little bit. That looks good to me. Next up, we can add links to these 3 images. And to do that, actually the first thing we're going to do is figure out what I'm linking to. In this case, for the Twitter link, if I just find my Twitter name, I'm just going to copy that, go into the HTML, and right around this Twitter image, oops, I just noticed here that I did not change the comments when I copied and pasted them. So around the Twitter image is what we want to link to Twitter. To do that, we're going to use an anchor tag, exact same way that we would add it to text, but in this case we're adding it to an image. So I'm going to start it there. I'm going to close the tag here. So again, exact same way that we added it up here, for example, to the navigation. The link I'm going to use is actually the link to my Twitter profile. If I save that and then preview it here, now this Twitter image, you can see it changes to a pointer, and if I click that, it takes me to that Twitter page. What I don't like about that is it takes me away from this page. So we're going to actually add in an extra bit of code in here to say when this link is clicked, open a new page in a new browser window, or a new browser tab that goes to Twitter, but leave this window open as well, so 2 windows will be open. I'm going to close this one right now, so just to show you, we're only working on 1 browser tab. And if we go in here, there's an extra space I'm going to get rid of. We want to say target equals blank. That little bit of code is just saying open a new browser window when you click on this link. So if I save that, refresh it, you'll notice again 1 tab is open, but if I click on this Twitter link, it opens a 2nd tab to get to that Twitter link. Finally, the last thing I want to do is in Chrome, it's not showing a blue browser. Depending on what browser you're using, it might show a blue border around the image when you've added a link to it. To solve that, in the image source, we're just going to add a little bit of code that says style border style border style equals none. This is just a little bit of extra to make sure that that blue border doesn't show up. I'm going to save that, refresh the page again, and again I don't have a blue border, but if I did, it would get rid of that blue border. So now you have the basic idea of how to add these 3 social media icons as well as linking to them. Copy the exact same idea for Facebook and YouTube images. You don't have to create any new styles or anything like that. It's just a matter of copying and pasting this beginning section in front of the other images. Make sure you close that with you close the anchor tag here and here, and other than that you should be good. So again, just copy the same steps to make sure that your Facebook and YouTube icons are linked to the appropriate links, or whatever other social media icons you want to use. As always, ask any questions in the comments or email me, and if you know the answer to any of the questions in the comments, please help out your classmates by answering them there.